Welcome back, everyone. Today we are talking about decision making for managers, how to make the very best decision possible with limited information. As you know, as a leader, as a manager, you will be making decisions that can have a profound effect upon the organization, your employees, your products, your customers, you name it. So it's important to understand how to go about making these decisions so that we can come up with the best, most viable solutions possible. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. Now, it begs the question, what gets in the way of us making really good decisions? Well, here's the thing. All too often, decisions are made on the spot with very little thought given toward first understanding the situation or considering our options. We don't want to do this. We want to really analyze the situation, analyze what the problem is presenting, and understand the possible solutions before us before we implement a decision. But here's the thing, that's hard. Okay, what we're going to talk about today, it's hard, but it's truly a competitive advantage. Any company can make a shoot from the hip decision and just kind of run forward and just hope that it was a good decision. But you don't want to be just any competitive company. You want your decision making to be a competitive advantage. So that's why you're going to really figure out how to do this well. Now, something else to consider is even when we do take the time to gather data and analyze the problem, we're really just looking to validate the decision we've already made, known as confirmation bias, not truly assessing the best course of action to take. So, as we go about this process today, we want to bear in mind that confirmation bias, our desire to kind of run with what our gut told us was right in the first place, does not end up making the decision for us. We want the data and the situation to make the decision. Okay, now what's online here? The ability to separate emotions, assumptions, and preconceived notions from facts and data, as well as look beyond the obvious and search for new, innovative solutions to complex problems, is critical to being a successful manager and also critical in being a competitive organization in the marketplace. Okay? So, with this in mind, we are going to break this video up into two parts. Part one is really around analyzing the situation. And there are 4 steps to analyzing the situation. Part two is 6 steps in making the decision itself. Okay, so with that in mind, let's do part one, analyzing the situation. We really cannot make a good, informed, data-based decision until we really understand what the heck is going on. So that's going to be key in making the very best decision. Step one here is defining the situation. Now, listen, you kind of know what the situation is, sort of, kind of, maybe, but can you really define it? That's what we want to do. You can't make an informed decision if you don't understand the situation. So, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to delve, we're going to ask, we're going to poke, we're going to sort of challenge what we're hearing in the narrative and figure out what's going on. We're going to ask ourselves, what's the problem or opportunity before us? Why is it important to address this situation, or is it truly important? Why do others, especially key stakeholders, consider this important? Why are they getting wrapped around the axle? If all about you are losing their minds and blaming it on you, perhaps you do not truly understand the situation. What are your assumptions? What are the unknowns? As you go through and ask yourself these questions, you will have a deeper understanding of the situation. Number 2, then, is determine the root cause. What is really going on here? Quite often, we don't see the problem so much as we see the effects or the results of the problem. So for example, if you have a flat tire and you look at your tire and go, that's a flat tire, there's the problem. No, that's not the problem. Sure, it's why you're over on the side of the road, I get it. But that's the result of the problem. What caused the flat tire in the first place? It could be any number of things. And so in the same way, we want to make sure that we are truly looking at the root cause of the problem, not just simply the effects of it outwardly manifested. Okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, one of the ways we can do it is we can ask team members and stakeholders to describe the problem as they see it. Now, this is often referred to as looking after the Rashomon effect, right? Akira Kurosawa, Rashomon, great, samurai movie and so forth. And the idea in the movie was, okay, there's this one crime that took place, this one event, but we're trying to figure out what happened. And so we interview like 5 different people to ask what happened. Well, 5 different people give 5 different answers to what occurred, right? 5 different eyewitnesses give us 5 different stories. Now, in the movie, that makes things pretty anxious because what really happened? But when it comes to decision making, these differing points of view can yield some important insights as we seek to understand the root cause. Okay, step 3 then is focus on the most critical information. So once you've identified your root cause, ask yourself what you wish you knew before you had to make the decision. This will give you focus as you do your data search and direct the questions you ask and from whom. Okay, so in other words, you need to recognize right off the bat, you are not going to find out everything you think you can know, right? There's a limit to how much data analysis you can do. So you need to understand what are the most pressing issues. What do I really wish I knew for certain, or as close to certain as you can get, before I had to make the decision? And so you really want to make sure that you're focusing on these and not getting distracted by shiny objects, which brings us to another aspect of step 3 here, which is focus on what matters. Once you start gathering the information, be careful you stay focused on the core issue. Don't waste time chasing rabbits and looking for information that is tangential at best. You'll want to stay focused. But in staying focused, you also don't want to get bogged down. You definitely want to avoid analysis paralysis. The idea of analysis paralysis is where you start to feel like, I can't make a decision until I know everything. I need to know absolutely everything because if I am uncertain about this, or if I can't get this information, or if I'm doubtful of this information, then my decision might be wrong. No, you can't allow yourself to get into that state. You need to keep moving forward. You need to be comfortable with not knowing. Something we'll talk about more here in a moment. Step 4 in our data analysis process is articulating possible courses of action. So generate some viable solutions, each detailing the pros and cons of a given course of action, as well as the costs and benefits. Now remember, we're not making the decision yet, but we want to know from what bucket of viable solutions can we choose a decision. Well, get all kinds of alternatives out there, but really make sure that you detail the pros and cons and costs and possible payout of each one of these possible courses of action. Okay, that brings us to part 2, actually making the decision. And there are, in fact, 6 steps to making the decision. It may seem like the best course of action is obvious at this point, but there's much more you need to do to increase your odds of success. So, what is that? Step 1, establish clear goals for your decision. Before you make a decision, you want to clearly understand what you want to get out of it. What does success look like? Now, in this case, we really are talking in broad generalities. What do you want a good decision to ultimately be able to do? We're not getting in the details yet. That's step 2. Right now, we're talking in broad terms. So, for example, some things you should probably be looking at is the odds of adoption, the odds of this decision actually being adopted by the key stakeholders. A good decision isn't just one that delivers quality or improvement. It's also one that's accepted, embraced, and championed by your key stakeholders. Hard as it may be to accept, an 80% solution embraced will always beat a 100% solution rejected. Yeah, you might have the world's best decision right there for the world to take, but the world says, no, we're not interested. Whereas, well, I have this other decision over here that only does 80% of what we want, and they all say, oh, yeah, we'll take that one. You take that one. Odds of adoption. Another thing you want to think about is the reach of your decision. There are several downstream factors you should consider, such as, well, your decision is going to have long and short-term organizational effects on your long and short-term organizational goals, cost in terms of time, money, and resources to implement, impact on current operations, unintended consequences of the decision. You want to have a good, broad understanding of what are the goals of this decision, because then we're going to go to step 2 and we're going to actually detail out the specific criteria that the decision needs to fulfill. As it says, once you have a good understanding of the goals for your eventual decision and the factors at play, you can then list out criteria for the decision. So, for example, here are just some hypothetical criteria. They don't have to apply to your decision, they're just out there. One could be, hey, this decision has little to no impact on current operations, or it can be implemented in a timely manner with current resources, or, and this one is not optional, is embraced by key stakeholders, or it's aligned with the organization's short and long-term objectives. These are examples of specific criteria that you need to be able to check off to say, yes, this is the best possible solution. Okay, that brings us to step 3, testing the practicality of the decision. Remember, I said an 80% solution accepted is always better than a 100% solution rejected. Well, here's where we want to really figure out, where are we in this term? So we want to understand what is our imagined future state and what we wish we could do versus the reality. We might have in mind this incredibly beautiful Pegasus unicorn, but in fact, you know what? The best we're going to get is a donkey out of this situation. That's fine. A decision may seem perfectly reasonable in your mind, but when rubber meets the road, the course of action may be anything but. You really want to understand, what are we truly looking at here? So ask those who know. You really want to shop this idea around. Shop your decision around to those who work on the front lines, those who will be most impacted by the changes your decision will introduce. Learn how your decision will affect, improve, or hinder their ability to meet their responsibilities. You want to have a clear understanding of this before you choose the best course of action. You also really need to understand the path to implementation. Clearly detail and map out an implementation plan. It may seem like the best course of action is fairly apparent, but when you look closely at what it would take to plan and implement the direction, the decision may seem less attractive or even viable at all. Okay? So yeah, this looks like a great course of action. Let's do it. What's the cost of implementation? Onerous and outside the realm of reality. Okay, well then that's not the right decision to take. All right, step 4, accept ambiguity. Yeah, you've already noticed there's a lot of ambiguity in all this. You're never going to get all the information you need, right? but we need to learn to work with that. After completing all the steps detailed here, you'll be reasonably prepared to make your decision. This may not mean that you'll have all the data you wish you had or that your degree of confidence will be as high as you might like. This is the nature of managerial decision making. You're never going to find out everything. You're never going to be 100% certain of the success of a decision, but we can try to get close. So what can we do? Well, go through this checklist. Ask yourself what information is missing, the criticality of this information, and the cost in time and resources in getting it, right? So if you're missing information and it's really critical and you have some time to gather it, well, then by all means, gather it. Don't rush that decision. But if you don't have the time, that just might be the way it is. Determine the cost of the organization then in delaying the decision. Maybe you can put it off a week, but maybe you can't. Ask yourself what is the worst thing that could possibly go wrong and put in place a mitigation and contingency plan. Since you are not 100% certain of the success of your eventual decision, that means there's a certain degree of likelihood of failure. Okay, that's fine. Put in place a contingency plan in case that does happen. Okay, that brings us to step 5. And I'm going to say, please, 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 of all these steps, step 5, there it is, right there. Step 5. This is the one that matters the most. You need to get buy-in or buy off or buy something from your key stakeholders. All right. No matter your position in an organization, there are those who you need to please to get a decision off the ground. If they're not on your side when the decision comes down, you are finished. That's it. It's that simple. If your stakeholders aren't happy, your career is not long for this world. I am talking from experience. Please heed me. All right, but then we get to step 6, which is actually making the decision and owning it. Well, don't you just make the decision? Yeah, but here are some things you really want to bear in mind when you make the decision. First, prepare for the fallout. Fallout is coming. There will be fallout. Communicate your decision with confidence and take responsibility for the outcome. Inevitably, even the best decisions will be challenged from multiple directions. You need to be prepared for that. Now, if you did your stakeholder management well, the fallout may not be as heinous as it would be otherwise. However, no matter how on board everybody is, once they actually start to see the effects of the decision, there's going to be some cost, there's going to be some fallout. You need to be prepared for that. But now, when you address the fallout, the challenges, do not get defensive. When people question or challenge your decision, resist the urge to explain the minutiae behind your decision-making process. This will only make you seem defensive and unsure of your decision, or even convey the idea that the decision is up for debate. The decision is made. It's now time to work toward making it a success. Don't get defensive. Don't over-explain it. Just say, this is the decision. Now, when you do this, confidence really sells. Confidence can demonstrate resolve. It won't make your decision any better, but it will help sell the ideas who support your ideas, sell your ideas to those whose support you need to make this thing successful. And then finally, take responsibility. Not all of your decisions are going to be a home run. If you are really, really good, 40% of your decisions will probably struggle. All right. Well, if it turns out your decision was wrong, deal with it. Don't try to run from responsibility or place the blame on someone or something else. Accept responsibility and work toward making it right. Now, this is key because accepting responsibility is going to add to your credibility and your integrity. And this is not the last decision you're going to be making. You're going to be making decisions all through your career. And when it comes to leadership and decision making, credibility and integrity are the coin of the realm. And so you will increase the odds of success of future decisions if you own decisions that did not go the very best they possibly could. Okay? So there you go. You now have a competitive advantage because you have a better understanding of how to research and assess and make the very best decisions possible for your organization. So go off, do some great things with this, and until we talk again, have a fantastic day.